This is David from the Much Love family. I just wanted to give you a heads up that we were having some technical issues during this session. I hope you can understand. Much love. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Much Love with Keoki, part of the Much Love family. My name is David, and the true talent of the show, the man across from me, Keoki. I wanted this episode to be part of a series of foundations from rocky to solid, going from insecurities to families, and I'm sure plenty of tangents in between. So I started thinking about this episode, and I titled it in my mind about perseverance, kind of in the face of insecurities of fitting in, struggling, putting one foot in front of the other instead of giving up and kind of pushing through. So we've mentioned it before, and for me, one of my big struggles was drugs, and it goes back. So for me, my struggles really started with youth and acceptance. I've always been short, and I've always been overweight, so I always had trouble fitting in, and really, drugs were the first time that I felt like I fit in. It was getting in with the cool kids, and being part of that. So for you, what insecurities did you have, about fitting in? I know moving around a lot must have been, real difficult. Again, for me, it was an aesthetic. It was how I looked, and that I always felt kept me from being part of the cool kids. What was it for you?
Well, it was a lot of that, a lot of aesthetic, but also the movie, because my father was military, so I was born in Hawaii. Then we went to Germany, from Germany to Texas, Texas to Panama, Panama to Hawaii, and moving from one place to another, you're jumping from one culture to another culture to another culture, and the kids in each one of those places, the kids in Germany, the kids in uh, out in Texas, and the kids in Panama, the kids in Hawaii, even the kids in Hawaii, they all dress and act different. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so for us to have to be able to jump from one world to the other was really difficult. And you felt insecure everywhere you went because you had to start over every 3 years, 3 to 4 years. And for all of my military brats out there, we know how it goes. It's just how it goes. You just got to go.
Having to be a chameleon.
Yeah, you had to be a chameleon, but you had to make friendships, but emotionally you couldn't get too deep in your friendships because you knew you were going to leave. So it was a very deep emotional thing too because you couldn't 100% dive into people and make that lifelong friend because you knew that something was gonna disappear. Like either they were gonna go, you were gonna go, something was gonna happen. Your families would always move, military and everything. And then, like I said, dressing culture, what was going on. I was a 80s, 90s kid, you know what I mean? So you're talking everything from different styles of dress, from hairstyles to different things. And each part of the nation, part of the world, even themselves, had their own, from girls back in the days with the hair nets, and my sister's spraying tons of hairspray and mousse on their hair, trying to get the new hairstyle that was going in the next neighborhood. One neighborhood they wore baggy pants, the next neighborhood they didn't. Some people were more hip hop influenced, some were more rock and roll, Southerners, some were different stuff. So Texas definitely different from Germany, and then Panama being a third world country, it was that, and then on top of that, my parents were, the typical 80s parents, but they were uh, alcoholics. My dad was a very extreme alcoholic, and then my parents were also on cocaine and other drugs and stuff like that. And so when we eventually came home to Hawaii, I think the biggest influence was when we came home to Hawaii, the biggest insecurities were Hawaii because we were we were always different. Like coming out to the states, going to Germany, things. We were Hawaiian. We're brown skin. We look Hispanic, kind of a thing. People don't know what we are because our facial features were different. So physically, they were like, okay, who are these kids? The parents, they're like, these kids are different. We don't look like the kids in the neighborhood. We don't look like the kids that are around us. We try to get along with the other foreigners or people who weren't quite American, but still, even we weren't even accepted into their crowd because we didn't speak Spanish. A lot of the other kids thought we were Hispanic. The Hispanics knew we weren't Hispanic. You know what I mean? And we're just in that miscellaneous crowd that nobody quite knew what you were. And we were raised with my dad always being Hawaiian, where like you're Hawaiian, you're Hawaiian, you're Hawaiian, we're American. And then when we got home to Hawaii, the Hawaiians didn't accept us because the Hawaiians were like, "No, you're raised like white people. You're white. You're not Hawaiian." And they're like, "Wait. Like our whole life, we've been told that we didn't fit in because we were Hawaiian and we were different. It's so cool. So we got home to Hawaii, and then we were outcasted in Hawaii because we didn't fit in because I spoke straight English. I didn't speak broad out of kind cause PG and all that. You know what I mean? I wasn't Hawaiian enough for them. So we were in this extremely lost crowd. You know, we looked like people we never got along with anybody. We acted and walked and talked different culturally from other cultures when we were out, and then when we got to Hawaii, then we apparently we weren't even their culture either, and we were outcasted. And then my parents got into crystal meth, and then we ended up homeless. And then because we were the homeless kids, we were the kids that were the kids of homeless and druggies. So we were the outcast again because nobody wanted to hang out with the homeless kids. We didn't have the nice clothes that everybody had. In fact,
Right.
nine times. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just saying. I was just agreeing. Yeah, I think that for you, and I take it for granted that I'm white, or as I I always had dark skin, so they always thought I was Hispanic. But I'm white, and was around white kids, so that was never. Well, you know what? Now that I say that, so I'm Jewish, so there was
Ooh, yeah,
that cultural separation. So
right,
there was the you are different from us,
right.
and but I did have a I did have a group of people that we had that same background. So I
Mm,
wasn't as ostracized as you because wherever you went, you weren't who you really were. So I mean that must have been really traumatic as a child. I mean, not for me again, it was the aesthetic, and it in a way it almost it's very superficial. I mean, it literally is superficial, and for you, it's cultural. It's this whole lack of acceptance, and you had to experience it every step of the way, and every 3 years you had to experience it. That's really rough, and for you to get to where you are, both inside and out, that's a testament to you, to your, you know, the intestinal fortitude that you have. So, I mean, it is a good topic of perseverance because you had to deal with these insecurities and not fitting in. And you could have, if you will, rocked the same grunge T-shirts, but there was still that outcast mentality, and that gets back in my mind to the thing that connected me was the drug use. So that was
Right.
a way that I connected with others, and with your family. I think it can go, it can go one of two ways. Either because your family's in it, you get into it, or because your family's in it, you stay away from it. So when you were going through those struggles of being insecure, how did you navigate that? Did you get caught up in it for at all, or was it, no, my family, I see what it does to my family, and I'm not going to go down that path?
Yeah, I think it was a big thing about understanding like that, not just learning to adjust because like for us it was like I always had to learn to adjust to the crowd around me. So I was always like hyper aware of everything that was going on, like what made them happy, what everything went. But um, with my parents doing drugs, that was a way for me to never touch drugs. Um, I was just always watching what my parents went through. I watched how they treat us when they were doing drugs. I watched the difference when my parents were sober and then when they were under the influence. So I've seen so much watching my parents, and that just kind of turned off that whole uh, how would you say that whole side for me. So the drugs was never it. I just would always try to find a crowd that I could, I guess I would have to learn to adjust to, because I had to learn everything about them, but they never learned anything about me. But I was always the guy that had to learn the crowd that you were in next, because you had to know how to fit in. So as you found similarities with people and you tried to get into their what kind of music they listen to, what kind of dance that they do, the different things that kids would do to connect, and I would have to lean on those. I think, but through doing that, I learned how to connect to different people, and so through that, I think I ended up. We were ended up when we were in high school. Very, like I said, where everything had hit the most when we got to Hawaii. Yeah, we were banished as Hawaiians, and the Hawaiians had looked at us different. But uh, we we got pushed to the basically the outskirts. So we hung around the miscreants. You know, nobody in school wanted. I guess I used to laugh and tell a lot of people the jokes that when I was growing up in high school, like I was extremely well known, but I was not popular, if that makes sense.
No,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah, so I wasn't the kid that people would come around and be like, "Oh, go hang out with him at lunch and this and that." But everybody knew who I was because I was the one kid that would say hi to everybody. I was the one kid that would always come in with somewhat of a positive energy. But because we didn't dress with the latest fashions, because my parents didn't have money, because I never had a new backpack, new shoes, and I was always the kid. Back in the 90s, we had that one thing in school that kids don't have anymore. It's called paper, and and we had pencils, that where I was always the half pencil, I would always lose it, but that was back in high school, back in school. But uh, we didn't have that, so we got pushed to the outskirts of school, to the corners behind the buildings where the smokers and the drug addicts would go hang out. But the one thing about those kids is that we found out that they were just an emotional crowd of kids that were way more emotional because the world wasn't catering to them. Their parents were drug addicts and they kind of had to learn to survive on their own, but they dove into other things. One of the things that my friends dove into was music, which was what really kept me around that crowd. And I think music was the connection that I had with my friends. Was that my friends would come every day, and in Hawaii, ukuleles were a small instrument, so we could all carry it to school. So we'd do that, and the guys, I would just watch them, and I'd hang out with this crowd because that's the only crowd that really accepted us. But I would sit there and watch them play music and watch them sing, and you can feel the emotion that came from them while they were doing that. And dude, that's what got me connected with them. And then my other thing that I connected to in high school was ROTC.
Oh,
ROTC was a big thing for me. Yeah, I ended up on the
because the
drill team.
military background, that makes sense.
Yeah, so military background, I obviously led towards a military structure in life, and there's still a camaraderie and a connection that even though my parents were drug addicts, like my dad and his soldiers that he was with stationed in the military, they did have a camaraderie with each other that is just commendable. I mean, the military and how they build families out of people who aren't even from the same countries is just unbelievable. So I went to ROTC straight in because that's the one place I knew anything. And from there, we became a part of the drill team. I spun rifles with the Wina High School drill team. Ended up starting the first drill team ever in our high school, and of
Oh,
which later on, eventually my brothers and sisters would join the drill team also, and my brothers and sisters would bring our first state championships to our high school and so on and so forth. But that became our family. The military, the RTC became our my big family. I mean, I have my miscreant families, as you could, you know. I mean, we all had to have some of those somewhere in life, you know, and especially
Right.
the 80s and 90s kids. We always had friends that were just the rebels to society, you know, and we hung out with them too to have some fun times. And those were the guys that I hung out with, good friends. But RTC really kept me in a good state of mind, also. Those are kind of things I dove into to deal with my insecurities.
Was the ROTC any different? So I remember you talking in another episode about the Hawaiian Guard, kind of the Royal.
Right. The
Uh,
Hawaii Kings Guard, Hawaii State Kings Guard, yes.
yeah. So was the ROTC at all tied to that? Did they have
No,
like a
no,
special, you know, was there an ROTC for that?
No. There was just a drill team, which basically the Hawaii State Kings Guard was an exhibition drill team for the state of Hawaii, and our high school just had an exhibition drill team in the RTC program. And later on, if you were good enough, you can go and try out for the Hawaii State Kings Guard, and then join the guard. That was like a private organization that you could do,
Oh,
but we kind of looked up to them because they originally started off as the guard of Hawaii at the Iolani Palace over in Hawaii, and then they eventually became an exhibition drill team in the 1970s. But it was something that we dove into where we became a family, and I guess that's what it is. Like you know, with your insecurities, like how you were talking about, it was just about us trying to find family, right? Anybody who would accept us for, let's say, what we were going through, or anybody who elated to what we were going through, and you could find a connection with anybody, you know. And the miscreant crowd, and their music and their emotional connection to everything. I mean, we never really got into the rebellious stuff. Like I said, I didn't because I already watched my parents do it. You know, all my
right.
friends in that crowd were drinking at like 14 years old. They're getting punch drunk and stoned off their trees and stuff. I saw it enough in my dad and my mom, and growing up I never wanted to touch it, you know. It was something like I just knew what it turns you into, kind of, I guess, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
No, I didn't
was
have. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have that. You know, my parents were fairly straight laced. I mean, at least what I saw at that age. You know, it turns out that they had their demons as well. But no, it was part rebellion, but I didn't see the I didn't see the depths of where it could take you. And then
mm,
once you get into it, you
right,
never see the depths. You're just caught in the wave. You never get to see how far out from land you actually are until it's too late.
right. Yeah,
What
it just hurts. I know from a family member looking, you know, just looking at my parents going through that, it really emotionally struck us. And I was just old enough to understand it. I mean, as a child, not to really necessarily really understand the drug part of it, but to understand the emotions and the ups and downs that it put us through. And that's where it clicked for me.
you know, you touched on music. What kind of music were you into at that age?
No, man. In Hawaii, reggae music is everything. Reggae music is the feel good soul music that just it helps you to pour out. You can sing about your hardest and worst emotions, your breakups, your everything, but you can dance to it. It's something about reggae that can take the deepest emotions that make you cry and just makes you want to sing out and dance to it. It's kind of different because, like, I came out to the States, you listen to country music, and it can get, you know, it gets pretty sad. They sing about all their things that they, you know, like they say, every cowboy likes to sing his songs backwards because he gets the truck back, he gets the girl back, and he gets the dog back, you know. So,
That's
but
funny. That's funny.
but it was, you can feel the emotion, you felt the depression versus us, the reggae makes you sing, and you express your emotion, but in a positive way, to kind of get through it, to understand that this is life. Like I lost my heart, but I can come out there and I can sing to it, and we can dance, and we skanking is a type of like almost like a rhythmic dance that you do with reggae, and that's just what we did. So reggae really, and it's an upbeat sound, so it kept you in
Right.
a positive note, and so it was always great.
Did you get into ska music?
Ska was pretty cool. Ska was a little bit more aggressive for us, because you got to talk like, right, we were in high school in the 90s. You're talking like, I grew up in elementary school listening to the whole Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, the good old mellow stuff,
Hardcore shit.
Yeah, yeah. To us, we think that's hardcore. And you listen to the slam metal and the crazy stuff they have now, like they turned it up like a million times. But
Yeah.
so listening to that and then coming through the aggressive state, it's like we were emotional, which is this is the positive side, I guess, of the insecurities and the isolation of the life that I went through. We didn't have TV growing up. We didn't have, because we were homeless. We went to the beach, and you sat at the beach, and we got home, and we knew we had to do our homework quick because you can go out and swim in the ocean. Even though we were living on the beach, my dad still had responsibilities. My dad used to tell us, we're homeless, we're not hopeless. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my dad used to tell us that. So my dad said, you come home every day, you still do your chores. We'd be the only homeless camp out there, raking our leaves up, making sure the sand was nice and smooth, making sure our tents were clean. Every month, my mom would make us take everything out of our little tents and dust out our things, and we'd wash our clothes, and we'd do everything. Like, my dad was like, you're homeless, not hopeless. Like, so we still did that. So we got home and we would do our homework as fast as we could so you could still have enough sunlight to go out to the beach and swim. So we would still go to the beach and swim and stuff because you didn't want to swim at night sometimes. Sometimes it got so dark you couldn't see anything and those waves would tear you up. But we did all that, but we didn't have I would say the social influence that other people had. Like, we would watch and listen to grunge, and we listened to the Green Days, or the all the stuff like that coming out, but we never understood the emotional, I guess, anger that was coming from the kids who were being institutionalized by media. You know what I mean? And all the things that were going on in life. Like, we knew of Kurt Cobain dying. We knew of all these things, but we didn't see it on TV every night and every day. It didn't influence us. So we
You
listened to the
didn't
music.
have MTV.
No, we didn't. Like, we had MTV when we were younger, when my dad was in the
Right.
military. And watch, like, everybody listened to UMTV Raps, and what was the other one? Was Headbangers Ball. You know what I mean?
Right.
We listened to all
120
those.
minutes, Headbangers Ball.
Yeah, yeah, like news around the world with Kurt Loder. You know what I mean? Like, it was
Yep.
like
Yep.
crazy, but we didn't have that constant when we were in high school. So I guess we understood what was going on because our friends were listening to the music, and I would just listen to it. We wear the T-shirts, but we never had the emotional anger that kids had. Growing up, and we never connected to that, but because we were isolated in many ways. We were isolated from a lot of things, but I think that helped me in many ways because I learned to adjust with different crowds, but at the same time, I wasn't influenced emotionally by that crowd. Does that make sense? You
No,
know,
it does.
that,
Yeah, it does. And I mean, for me, I didn't get into reggae until much later in life, until college. I was into the Seattle music scene and the grunge and the that emotional stuff is what resonated for me. And you know what? I might have gone. Well, you know what? I was going to say I might have gone down a different path if the music I listened to was more upbeat, but I would have still ended up smoking because of reggae. I wouldn't have been able to avoid it.
right, right. No, well, my friends had it all around us. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think I probably smoked twice in my life just because hung around my friends, influential. We all got stoned, and I find out, there's several different types of people when they get stoned. My girlfriend at the time eventually became my wife. She was the giggler, the person that would smoke and then they couldn't stop laughing at
Hmm.
anything. No matter what would happen, they would just look at you and laugh. You know what I mean? I was kind
Right.
of that guy when I smoked. I just wanted to eat and sleep. That's all. I just wanted to chill and just relax. And I just kind of got into that. I'm gonna eat something and then go to sleep. People used to always tell me like, "Where the hell did you go?" And I'm like, "I just went to sleep." But I smoked twice in my life, and it was with my best friend in high school. And then when I joined the military they kept us clean from drugs, piss tests, and all that stuff like that. And so I never ever got back into. I just experimented with my friends, and I really tell you the truth. I the feeling to me was, I guess it was cool. It was it was mellow. It was great, but I always had that fear of becoming my parents. And then I guess that's combined with the military kind of giving me an excuse not to have it. I just kind of just stayed away from it. You know what I mean? It was kind of one of those things. But like I said, I had other vices, of my music and partying. At a point in time when I was in the military, I drank a lot, but I think that just comes with you being young and being forced to give your life for a country and everything like that.
Yeah.
And they kind of, as all military, we just kind of, when you're a young kid, you just go out and you overexpress, right? And so I was influenced by a lot of my friends in the military, and we drank and drank and drank. And I think right now my liver is still mad at me, So
Yeah, but that sense of the idea of fitting in and tying it to a family that's that's not blood. Blood is often the strongest connection, but we can be surprised how close we get to others when we connect on something deep, something from our core being. So kind of the idea of you were able to do that in the military, that must have freed you from a lot of those insecurities because you were now part of a clique. You were now, I mean, I imagine in the military there are still cliques. There are still the cool guys. There's still the uncool
right,
guys,
yes,
and but you're closer knit than you were to kids in high school, I imagine.
right. And I think the military taught me something that was very, very important, and that it was like, when people come together for a purpose, then that's when you find true unity. Because yeah, there were cliques. You got off. Let's say you got off work. The African Americans hung out with them guys. The Hispanics hung out with those guys. The white guys hung out with their guys, and everybody segregated. They just separated and did their own thing. But
Oh,
when we all put that uniform on, and we go to a battlefield, it is only us. So we learned to understand that our differences are just that. But when we come together for a purpose, like I trust that guy 200% with my life. And you learn to understand outside of the differences. You know what I mean? That differences, it's everything in life. We're always going to have differences with people, but how do we all come together? And that was a big thing. And I think that's something I loved out of the military, was it taught me to find a purpose. And when you can find people who are different, that's fine. But then where can I find a commonality, a common direction, and a common purpose? And how do we unite these people? Because when we go on that battlefield, I tell you what, we wear that same uniform and we'll all die the same. And we'll just sit there and look to our left and right. And I don't care if you hang out with the Hispanics on the weekends. I don't care if you don't go to the same club that I go to. I don't care if you worship the same God as I do. All I know is that you got my back and I got yours.
yeah. I mean, for me, it's kind of uh, it kind of goes full circle. So for me at the beginning, it was the kids who did drugs that I was closest with, and now that I'm in a recovery program, that's my new family. My non blood family. That's the people that I'm closest with, and it's very similar to the we're all there for the same purpose. You for the military, and for me, the group is just trying to get another day clean, and there's the tons of nationalities. There are people that slept in abandoned buildings and ate out of dumpsters, and
Right.
were the the I don't want to say. I mean, they were they were the crackheads. They were the ones that you picture as being a crackhead, and
Right.
I wasn't. But you know what? Those we still have a commonality now. We now have this thing that unifies us, and that's my new family. I don't have to try to fit in because we're all there for the same purpose. And I imagine for you, now that you're out of the military, you've transitioned to another family, the tattoo family, your tattoo community. That might be a non-blood family for you. What's that world like?
Oh yeah. Naturally, once again, just me being a part of a lot of those miscreant crowds, and learning America. I guess the good thing is I started tattooing out in Hawaii. I mean, I understood getting tattooed because I got my first tattoo when I was, my best friend right before I left in the military. Then I got my second tattoo while I was in the military in Texas. And when I started tattooing in Hawaii. And Hawaii is based on a lot of culture. Once again, thousands of years of culture in tattooing. So I started to learn that I was in Hawaii. Then when I came to America, you start to learn that the American form of tattooing is more of an alternative lifestyle. It is a the guys that say "f you" to society. You know what I mean? They're the guys that are like, the hell with rules, the hell with regulations, the hell with society. They're just the alternative crowd. And I've understood them since high school. I've understood them since before. So fitting into this crowd was too easy. I understood their emotions. I understood their pain. I understood why they get their tattoos. The whole sometimes sense of it's the sense of insecurities. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to find a belonging, and they why am I different? And so when society can be sometimes too stiff, in their what they think is their, I guess, the picture perfect citizen or person. You know what I mean? Society can be stiff sometimes, that people run to these alternative lifestyles that they call it here in America. But then I think that's where I was able to understand the difference from my Polynesian tattooing to coming to America. But I also grew up in that alternative crowd. So they became my family even more because I'm empathetic to them, because I understand, because I've been in that crowd before. But at the same time, I understand why they connect to tattooing also, because tattooing marks you in that group or society. Like we were talking about the Samoans, how they become I guess like higher citizens, right? Like I said, the king would allow these guys to get these malofies, these tattoos, and they were a prestigious person in this society. Where even connecting and being connected to somebody, and let's say you could say a connection, like let's say you have the golf cart communities. You go into a
Right.
community now, got golf carts everywhere. And if you don't have a golf cart, you're out, right? You're not cool. You're not in. Communities where you move into a certain neighborhood and there happens to be like three-quarters of them have a Mercedes Benz. You know what I mean? Well, if you don't have something, there's always going to be something that connects people to the society or the place the group that you want to connect to. Whether it be you, where everybody wears polo shirts to work and you wear polo shirts to work. Same thing, but tattooing is just another form of connection. We wear tattoos, and then we find that commonality in life. Like you have a tattoo, I've got a tattoo. Holy crap, we went through the same thing. Like that, you find
Right.
that link to it, stuff like that. And so, just like doing other things, where it's the physically having things like the right pairs of shoes. We got sneakerheads out there, guys who want the right pair of shoes, guys who wear Jordans or wear different things. There's always a connection in life that we have. We just happen to find a different connection, which is tattooing. But now that I understand that crowd, I understood that crowd growing up. For me, connecting my understanding of society in Hawaii and how we took tattooing, maybe I can use that and help make the world a better place through that?
What about tattoo artists? Is that also its own community?
Oh, tattoo artists are the craziest of all. I will tell you that right now. We are the hidden behind the scenes. We are Oz. We are the instigators of society, of this society. The tattoo artists are usually the guys, and as you get older as a tattoo artist, you start to get kind of more settled. But we're usually the rowdy ones, the ones that push for things, because we engage straight into that activity. You know what I mean? And we push people towards that activity. Like, dude, you should get a tattoo. Dude, you know what we should do? We should do this. We're the instigators, and so tattoo artists are in their own way. I tell a lot of my friends who get tattoos, someone's like, you have to have a few screws loose to get tattooing, because it's it's self harm. You know, it's that masochist kind of like you just want to you're getting this pain. You're doing it to yourself. So you have to have a few screws loose to get a tattoo. But it's the tattoo artists that have screws missing. You know what I mean? We're the ones that are literally
That's
like
funny.
yeah, because we've got to be able to do that. But we have a certain saying, a certain level of sanity. But then our level of insanity can go deeper than others. You know, it's really crazy. Tattoo artists are we are the emotional connect. We are the hub of those emotions, and we instigate. We push that out to people. Now, as a tattoo artist, I have to be mindful of my energy and how I project it because I realize that the tattooing, once again, through society in the islands as well as other societies, like tattooing is a major influence in society. Which a lot of people don't understand yet. Even Americans haven't fully understood it yet. They're starting to get the understanding. They're catching up, like I told you before. They're catching up to these older cultures, these older nations that have had tattoos and understand how their tattoos have been a part of their society, where America's just catching up to that. But to be mindful me of my energy that I'm passing through that knowing that yeah, if I get with the right people, trust me, I can unscrew all my bolts and we can run the
Are
wrong
there
crowd quick.
are there different like I can imagine that there are different cliques with within tattoo artists. We do Polynesian, we do sailors, we do realism. Does one look down upon the other? I imagine there probably is on some level, but do you find that or no? The tattoo world kind of, because you guys are all crazy, that you guys are your family.
I think for us, we have a level of respect for each other as tattoo artists and stuff like that. But there's always going to be a sense of what we call now in Hawaii, we call elitism, where there's always people who think that my style is better than yours, or my style is more difficult than yours, so it makes me better than you. You know what I mean? It sucks because a good example of this is a lot of people tend to knock on the traditional American style of tattooing. A lot of people knock on it. They're like, "Oh, those guys don't know how to draw. Those guys, it's a lot of like cartoony American stuff, you know, traditional good
Right.
American stuff." But a lot of other, let's say, guys who are realism artists, or some guys who are extreme like color artists, or they do other things, geometric stuff. They look at the traditional tattooing as not being as technical as others, but as a tattoo artist myself, like that's one of the most technical styles because simplicity is always harder because they are focusing on less things, so you have more attention to certain things like your line work. It has to be very straight. Your coloring has to be exact because there isn't a lot going on in design to it. But there's in the end there's levels of that elitism. Once again, it goes on in all forms of society, but we have it in tattooing. But I think we all understand as being tattoo artists that who we are and what we do, we understand and we elate to our daily struggles and everything like that. So I think as tattoo artists, period, we'll all give each other the respect straight from the beginning.
That's good. I mean, it's good that the differences don't divide you as much. That's what a family is. Acknowledging the differences and still focusing on the similarities and kind of tying it together. Tattoos have added for me have added an aesthetic. Added this visual characteristic that helps me take away from the insecurities. People might see my tattoos instead of the things that I I've been concerned about, and it gives me entrance, into a new group and a new family, like you said. And to be honest, I owe you for a lot of that. You've helped me get there, and I love you for that, man. And as we say on these episodes, much love.
Yes. Much love. That's what it is. Just helping people get to that exchange, that sharing of it. I think it's awesome, but it's nothing but, and I think even those people who act different ways, once again, different parts of society. These are people who just live with their own, as we talked from the beginning of this episode, their own insecurities. And sometimes people will reflect anger towards somebody who's different or whatever because they feel different in their insecurities about others, whether they fear somebody else and what they're capable of or what they do or the differences and stuff like that. I think if this world we could just learn to deal with our insecurities and find a family that has um, a positive impact or direction, like you're saying, for your group that you're with, when everybody comes together for a positive purpose, that we can learn to push aside differences and actually come together and make that better and to understand each other versus to compare each other,
Yeah, man, and I think that's what we want to bring. We want to bring this sense of family and include others, and that's what the Much Love family is about. It's a
Yeah.
family of love, and it's what we want to create, to foster, is this family. It's a channel, it's a lifestyle, it's a love. So I love you, man.
Yes, love you too, brother. Always, man. Thank you so much. And that direction that we're going through to help this world, help the people and everything. Once again, bringing all the different walks of life and all of us together for a common cause, like what's been going on lately. Just that movement towards getting society, making everybody better, and making the world a better place, more acceptable, and where we can all come out of our insecurities and just love each other more, man. Yes, much love, brother. All right. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Much
that
love,
was good.
everybody.